Hey, it's me again. I'm back for another episode of walking through the greatest short story ever told. If you've been following along the whole time, it has been good to have you with us. If this is your first time, welcome, and we're grateful that you are joining us. I say we, I am the only one here, so I am grateful that you are joining us. This series is based on something that I preached at the South Lake Church in 2010, heavily shaped by Tim Keller's book, The Prodigal God. And by the way, the premise of his book is that this is an assault on community caused by idolatry, which is only overcome by agony. And we looked at the first two parts of that premise or that thesis, and we're going to look at the last part of it beginning today. So, for the past few episodes, we have been looking at a story that is traditionally called the parable of the prodigal son. You notice how we focus on the one son when Jesus actually tells the story because of the other son, and in many cases he does so because that is the son that's inside of us. Not always, but most of the time. We've noted that you'll miss the radical message of this story if you don't see that it is about two sons who are both alienated from their father in different ways. They both wanted selfish control of the father's things instead of a relationship with the father. One wanted to gain control of the father's stuff by running away with it, while the other one wanted to gain control of his father's stuff by staying home and being very good for it. Both of them assault the integrity of the family, yet the father was extravagantly reckless with his love as he went out to both sons, hoping to restore the relationship with each of them. And it could only be restored through the agony of the father. And that's why we call it, what we've called this series, The Prodigal Father and Two Lost Sons. This is the third of three parables Jesus tells to the same audience. He tells these parables because the religious leaders were offended by the types of people attracted to Jesus. And so they are meant to be looked at together. And when we do, we discover three important truths. And I'm going to share one of those truths today. And then in the next episode, we'll look at the other two. But this is where we're going to get into how it's overcome by the agony of the Father. So let's look at the cost of reconciliation. The cost of reconciliation. At first glance, the reconciliation of the younger brother seems not to have cost anything. The father doesn't lecture him when he leaves, and he doesn't lecture him when he returns. There is no punishment. There's no waiting period to make sure the broken trust is rebuilt. He is just taken in with open arms. The father runs to him, throws his arms around him, kisses him, and welcomes him home with a huge celebration. Now, some people look at this scene and say that reconciliation is completely free, that it doesn't cost anyone anything. However, that is not completely true. The reconciliation is free to the younger brother, but it is very costly to someone else. We've already noticed that it was the agony of the father that made reconciliation possible for both sons, but there is something else I want you to see here. And it is very costly to someone else. The older brother is angry, and we looked at his part of that story yesterday. He is angry because of the cost of this reconciliation. Remember back to the very first episode, the father had given the younger brother his entire legal part of the inheritance, and it was all spent, it's all gone. Yet now the father is restoring him back to the family. He puts the best robe on him, a ring on his finger, and sandals on his feet. He restores him back to the family as his son. The ring he put on his finger was probably the signet ring. It would be the one in which family members could ratify contracts and do businesses. It's like he gets a new line of credit. He has a debit card, if you will. The younger brother's fair share of the wealth is all gone. But now he's back. And every robe, every ring, every pair of shoes, and every meal is coming out of someone else's pocket. Have you ever thought about that? Are you following me? Everything the father has is legally the older brother's. Earlier in the story, he divided the property between both of them. So in verse 31, when the father says to the older brother, everything I have is yours, he is speaking the literal truth. So the salvation of the younger son is not free after all. It has already been extremely costly. And here's what I want you to see as we close today's episode. The father cannot forgive the younger brother except at the expense of the older brother. He is the one who must bear the cost of the reconciliation. So just tuck that truth away, and in tomorrow's episode, we will come back to it. So that's it for today. I hope this has been helpful. If you've missed any of the previous episodes, I would encourage you to go back and watch them. I've also created a playlist on YouTube. I'll try to link that into the comments here on Facebook Live in case it just makes it easier for you to find them or to share them with someone else. And remember, turn back to Luke 15 and spend some time reading and marinating and reflecting on this story and see where you are in it. I hope you have a great day. Take care.